Hey everyone, FusedVR coming at ya, and today wanted to dive deep into a topic called cardboard AR. And this is something I tried recently and I think is really, really cool. So let me know in the comments if you've tried below any of the headsets that I'm going to be explaining about in this video, because I kind of want to get a feeling of how people are actually reacting to this as well. So first off, what I want to talk about is, what is cardboard AR? Like, you might have some guesses, which probably make a lot of sense, but let's dive a little deeper into what that means. Why cardboard VR failed, and specifically, what are some of the learnings that cardboard AR, as in its current state, is actually using to progress forward. And then some of the use cases, which I think is a big deal, especially when you compare the VR and AR side of things. So let's go ahead and dive into this. So high level, what is cardboard AR? Well, what it is pretty much a piece of cardboard with some plastic and some mirrors in it that allow you to just put your phone into it and you'll be able to experience augmented reality. Now, there are a couple of players that are in the space. The first one is Horizon, which is the one that I personally have, and I funded the Kickstarter, now I have my own. There is HoloKit, which is over here. And again, very similar in concept, and this is kind of just a breakdown of what that would look like. You've got Prism, similar concept. Again, slide your phone in, and once you do that, you'll be having a mirror display here. And the last one that I think kind of fell off the radar a little bit because of the Star Wars movie is the Star Wars AR headset, which actually comes with your own lightsaber, and it also comes with an actual AR piece of glasses that you can put your phone into. So these are a couple examples, but how does this actually work? So let me get a nice white sheet right here, and let's go and give this a little bit of drawing. So for starters, similar to cardboard, it kind of has that similar shape of a rectangle with a little box effect coming out of it. And if you have a smartphone, this is exactly where you're going to go ahead and just slide it in right there. So that starts the frame. Now, your display, once you actually put it in, is right here. I'm just going to put D for display, and that's emitting light right out of the actual smartphone display. So now, how does this display go and send that light into your eyes? Well, the way that does it is with mirrors. So the light from here goes through, bounces off, and it goes to a little mirror that we see right here. Next, that light then from here bounces up towards another mirror that we draw up here. The last part is this then bounces that light to your eyes, which are sitting here at the top. And this is at a high level, a little box diagram of how this will actually look. So again, let me just repeat that. So you slide your phone in right here, and that's at the bottom of this display. That light from your display then bounces off here, and then bounces into your eye. So why build something this complicated? The reason for that is because once you do this, you can now actually represent the real world with these kind of little parentheses here. So this is the real world. And your augmented reality here is now overlaid on top of it. This is similar to, say, ARKit or AR Core, if you're familiar with those types of technologies, except now applied in a stereoscopic effect. So again, very much like cardboard, but now in an actual headset, and very much like ARKit, except now you have it in stereo. So hopefully this little diagram here kind of makes a little bit of sense. And so how do you actually go ahead and render something on top of it? It's actually, if you do a little bit of research into light, the way this works is, in order to render on top of the real world, anything, if this here is my display, anything I render in black, like this, is see-through to the real world. Anything I render with a different color, let's say like this little stick figure right here, that gets rendered on top of the real world. So high level, that's how cardboard AR is actually working. And it's actually really cool tech. So quick little tangent side note, I saw this tech back in 2014, and this was made by a company called FaceSpace. So yes, this tech has been around for a long time, and at the time, it was only 3 degrees of freedom. You could just like rotate and just shoot some goblins that are coming at you. So really simple, but I was super wowed by it because it was really that amazing of tech. So hopefully that kind of gives you a little bit of insight into how all of these mirrors, the light, and all of that good stuff actually works. And I think, personally, for me, it's really, really cool. So now that we kind of have a broad understanding of how cardboard AR works, let's kind of take a step back and look at why cardboard VR kind of is deemed to have quote-unquote failed. And so there's several reasons here, and it's really kind of good to reflect on these to kind of see how we can improve tech in the future. So one, the 3 degrees of freedom was a great wow factor for a lot of people, but it wasn't really like this is going to revolutionize everything. And part of the reason for that was because of low latency and because of that just simple rotation, you couldn't actually walk and get closer to things. You had a lot of people getting motion sick and not really liking what cardboard VR was about. A lot of people kind of called that poisoning the well. I don't really think it was poisoning the well, but it definitely did lead to people being a little more skeptical. You had content. There was definitely a lot of cardboard content, and there still is, but the problem was that a lot of it was kind of very hard to find, and it was only really there for like a one-time use type of thing. You would try it, it'd be great, and then you'd kind of be done. So that was another big problem compared to, say, the Vive or the Rift, where things like Lone Echo are allowing people to spend a lot more time in VR, even if it's in short bursts, but it's a continual period. And kind of also coupled with the Echo Arena Lone Echo comparison is having hand controllers like this is actually a really big deal. And cardboard VR, the input being a little like a little press of your hand, wasn't it for a lot of people. And so I think personally for me, that was one of the biggest problems. It made it really hard to design for cardboard because you didn't really have a lot of options of how people wanted to interact. And I think that's a really big deal when you're talking about actual cardboards and just VR in general. There was also this kind of whole competition. You had a bunch of different apps there that were really hard to find within the actual Play Store. You had Apple not really supporting kind of what cardboard was. So there was that like kind of business side factor to it as well. Not really a huge issue, but something that I figured might as well point out. And the last thing, which probably is the hardest part for any new tech, is purpose. So what I mean by that is, what was the quote-unquote killer app of cardboard? I'm not even saying that VR really has a killer app right now, but like something that would get people going over and over again to it, that was kind of missing. You had things like Google Expeditions, which was really cool, but kind of limited in use case and still didn't have that really interactive quality of it. So that were kind of the high-level reflections on why some of the reasons why cardboard VR isn't as successful as any other platform. Now, on the flip side, let's use that to talk about why cardboard AR is so different. For starters, you get positional tracking, and I think personally for me, this is a big deal. The ability to like actually walk around in 6 degrees of freedom, rotate whatever you want, and interact with things that way. One of the reasons why ARKit and ARCore is such a big deal is because of that 6 degrees of freedom. It allows a lot more interactive potential for users going into an actual demo experience, whatever you have it. So that to me is a big deal. And the reason I'm saying that we have positional tracking is actually because of ARKit and ARCore. On the Horizon, which is the cardboard AR I have, you have an ability for the camera to see through. As is mentioned in this diagram, you don't really need a camera to pass through and see anything because you have the real world up here where your eyes are actually passing through. However, by allowing the camera to actually have a view of the real world down here, you allow the actual smartphone to do some positional tracking. And I think that's actually a really big deal that is going to make this drastically different from, say, cardboard. You can get a pretty big field of view because of this, compared to, say, the HoloLens, or compared to even Magic Leap, even though I know Magic Leap is not out at the time of this recording, but it's kind of through patents, you know that the field of view is small. And because you have a large field of view on the side of your periphery, that's going to be stabilized by the real world. What that means is that since you have a base in the real world that's tracked with your motion, you're not going to get really that motion sick that you do with cardboard VR. And that's really a big deal, because that just helps with the actual use cases and what people can do. Now, that said, there are definitely some cons. There's a lack of content, but that's just the chicken and egg problem that just plays out over time. There's no input, especially on the Horizon. I know in some trailers and videos I've seen that there is actually like a 3DOF controller or what have you. But the problem here, without having input, at least in this current generation, makes it really hard to develop content, makes it really hard to interact with anything. You get back to the early VR days where it was just like gaze-based interaction, which is just really bad. I think we all can agree to that. And I think the last thing that's different about cardboard AR, which we're going to dive into a little bit more, is its purpose. I think its purpose is a lot more clear because of some of the history behind what is happening in the augmented reality space. So, use cases. Let's dive into this. So first is field training. And we actually have a picture right up here where they're using the DAQRI headset, which has been around for quite some time and has basically a very heavy helmet that you can actually go ahead and put on, and it has like an augmented reality view. So this is kind of what a DAQRI helmet would look like. A really bad sketch on my part. I don't even know what's going on in my hair anymore. But you get the point, that you have like a giant helmet, which are what you're seeing on this actual on the actual slide, and you can move around, and you've got this like tiny field of view that you can use as a kind of a glass display to see through. So this is what we're working with the DAQRI type of headset. And just quickly before we move on to the next one, I think field training like this and going into, say, windmills or whatever type of industrial work you're doing, and being able to kind of get instructions on what you're doing and how you're doing it, even from the educational side of things, I think is really, really important. The other thing that I think is going to be pretty huge is kind of this whole museum and out of home education type of field. Museums are a really big deal as far as, imagine being able to put on a headset like this, walk around, and you get to an exhibit. Let's say it's our little cardboard AR exhibit here. That'd be kind of meta. And you get here, and you get little information that pops off to the side. So maybe like, this is AR, or I don't know, this is the display, or like whatever you have. And this is typically wouldn't be possible in a traditional type of actual museum without having like a plaque off to the side. But now you can have it in an interactive sense. Now the tech there has to be pretty pre-programmed. It's not generic. But I do think even if it is pre-programmed interactions that happen, having that AR element would be a big deal. And on the topic of that, I think education. Cardboard VR is also doing the same thing, but there can be some elements of AR. I'm not really entirely sure what exactly, but that's something to keep an open mind towards. Data visualization, I think, is huge. If you go back to field training, it's very similar in the concept. Let's say you're in the field and you are looking at, say, some pressure gauge, and you want to know the history of kind of what the pressure has been like in the past. That could be a very interesting application. Again, some of this might be having to be a little pre-programmed as far as like where the data is and whatnot, but the point is still there, and I think that's super exciting as well. Amusement parks is, I think, really interesting. We've seen it a little bit with out-of-home entertainment, especially in VR. But the interesting part here is amusement parks might not necessarily need to redesign what they're doing. Now, of course, for amusement parks, you might not want to use a cardboard flimsy headset, But you could probably make something very similar to what we're currently seeing in the market with plastic, and that could potentially serve the job. Think, say, something like the Samsung Gear VR, except for AR. And that, I think, is interesting. And something that you might be noticing throughout all of these is that they're all pretty short experiences. And because of that, it makes perfect sense to use something that's kind of semi-disposable like cardboard AR and allow you to get the benefit you need from these given use cases. So that I think is something definitely to keep in mind as well. So I like to end these Facebook Spaces with just an image to talk a little bit about where we're headed and ignore the little bit that's in my hair that I can't remove. So you can see on the slide, the future is unwritten. And I think that's very applicable for where we are with cardboard AR, where we are with AR as a whole. And so it is 2018, and I know that's a crazy concept. We've progressed so much as far as like what VR is and what AR is, and we're getting to the point where I think we're starting to sort of see things that could resemble a merge between VR and AR. These cardboard AR headsets are really that step towards it. They're cheap. They are true augmented reality in the sense that you have an actual headset, and they're so new that no one knows what to do with them, and it's kind of up to the developer community, us guys, to actually figure out what we want to do and make steps towards it. That to me is, again, always super exciting to see whenever the future is unwritten and how we can make a difference in that. So hope you guys enjoyed this video. Again, cardboard AR to me is something super exciting, and we'll have to see how this future holds. I'm going to definitely be looking out for it. If you like this video, make sure to smack that like button because it helps us out a ton. And if you're new to the channel and you liked this video, make sure to subscribe for types of this content, tutorials, and a bunch of other stuff. So, cheers to 2018, and until next time, this has been FusedMan, and I'm signing out.